Hi, Zoom folks. Welcome back. We missed you. You missed a great day.
We are gathered back together after a really filling afternoon. I don't know about you, but my cup is pretty overflowing. I've got a lot to think about. Yeah, just very moving conversations. I hope you had those as well. Before we turn it over to West to bring us home, I would like to introduce you to Pat Osterhoudt. So Pat is a member of the Ramapough Munsee Nation, which is our local indigenous folks. And she is going to share a little bit about what is going on in your area and in your life.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I mean, we had some amazing conversations just a little while ago. My name is Patricia Osterhoudt. I'm a member of the the Ramapough Munsee Nation. I'm of the Deer Clan. That's where my family is from, the Deer Clan of the nation. I reside in Hillburn, New York. I'm an elder in Brook Native American Presbyterian Church. Thank you. And I'm here to just tell you a little bit about Brook, a little bit about the history. Brook Church has been around since 1893, I believe it was dedicated to the Presbytery. In Hillburn, Hillburn's only a 2.2 size. Okay. Hillburn is only a 2.2 mile town. That's how big it is. In 1893, 2 churches were dedicated to the Presbytery in that town. There was Brook Church. And I'm going to tell you, I never learned the appropriate name for the other church, but we always called it the White Church. So we had 2 churches, and the church was white. It was a white church. So we had 2 churches in that town. We also had 2 schools. We had the main school and we had the colored school. The colored school did not have inside bathrooms. The colored school did not have a gymnasium. The colored school got the books from the main school. In 1943, the parents who were members of Brook Church decided, you know what? We're not going to take our kids to that school anymore. We're going to boycott. So they boycotted the school. They had one member of Brook that was working in New York City, was not beholden to anybody in the county for a job or anybody in the town for a job. And he got in touch with the NAACP. They came, they sent Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall was a young attorney at the time for the NAACP. He came to our town, he fought with us. As the parents boycotted the colored school, they brought the children and the teachers from the colored school to Brook's Church and taught the children there. They got fined, some of the parents, $10, I think it was $10 a child. Some couldn't do that. They couldn't afford, if they had 10 kids, maybe 8 kids, that was a lot of money to spend. So some of the parents had to go back to Brook, not many. Other words, stays the course. With the help of Thurgood Marshall, in 1943, the school was desegregated. All the kids were able to go to the main school. When they got there, there were no other children in the main school. One child. All the parents had moved the kids from that school into the Catholic school in Suffern or other schools, private schools. And that happened for about a couple of years until they realized you got to pay tuition to those schools. And they couldn't afford it. And so that's when the other kids started to come back to the main school. That's the beginning of our history. Our history didn't get with Brook's Church a whole lot better after that with our relationship with the Hudson River Presbytery. Over time, we've had some amazing ministers. We had Reverend Ruth Wainwright. Oh my God, I love this woman to death. She has been the amazing ally and friend to Brook over the years. She was there for 17 years, her first ministry, and her last. She retired after that. But once Reverend Ruth left, our relationship started to go down with the Hudson River Presbytery, and they were sort of non-existent in the life of Brook Church, and we were just going on. We were faithful, and we just kept doing, and we just kept going forth and doing God's work. And I remember there was a time, I think it was back in 2016, something like that, 2015. We had a problem in the church, and I called Hudson River, and there was a young girl answered the phone. She said, hold, I said, this is Brook Church, you got a problem, need some help. She put me on hold. She came back a little while later, asked me who I was again. I explained to her who I was. We got help. We had an AC committee, it was formed, and we got help at the church. It was amazing. What I found out years later was that we were not on the map at the Hudson River Presbytery. We were not known to the Hudson River Presbytery, to the newer people that came in, because we were part of a narrative from way back when. So our life in the Hudson River Presbytery was discounted. We were put in sort of the same categories as churches that were getting ready to close. We were there for 60 years, I was told, in that category. I don't know why, because we were a thriving church, we were going. But I say all this because this is our past. That's what we went through, and we went through other stuff. We have this amazing history as a small church. But what our present is much different. You know, God will put you through some stuff. He will cause things to happen in your life. And what happened at Brook, we had a flood. Took out 2 rooms of our building. We only had the sanctuary left. We had no money. But through that struggle to rebuild the church came some great relationships. And one of them was with the Northeast Synod in Sendana, and Nicole and Lisa and the other people that work up there. And they came and they said, how can we help you? And it wasn't just how can we help, it was how can we support you, but also how can we help you make a good relationship with Hudson River Presbytery? And that to us was like that window, that door opening, that fresh air coming in, that new life for Brook. Now, after we got those 2 rooms finished, the ceiling in the sanctuary fell the same day we were done. We were sitting looking at the beautiful 2 rooms that were finished and complete, and I looked over with the clerk of session and we heard creak, 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 and said, phew, and the ceiling fell as we were sitting there. So that took out the sanctuary. But again, it's through our struggles that we succeed. It's through our challenges, and Brook has had challenges over the years, but we succeed. And now we have a beautifully 90% renovated church. Started out with all tragedy, started out with us having nothing in the bank. Now we have this beautiful church, this beautiful space to worship in, this beautiful space to invite people to come see, invite people to come worship with us, to do things in. And I tell all this just so you can see how being steadfast, God wants you to be steadfast. He wants you to be going through that stuff, but he wants you to know that he's still there with you. And we saw that as we were going through these challenges. We saw the people that were coming in to help. We saw all those relationships that we're building and building. And I have to say, our relationship today with the Hudson River Presbytery is a very different relationship than it was in the past. You know, we are a people that for many years couldn't say who we were. We're a people that didn't have the voice to say we were Native, because people would say, no, Native people don't exist around here. Weren't Native people, didn't they all go out west? Well, you don't look Native. Are you African American? Do you speak Spanish? You know, and all these things. I've had my grandnieces and nephews, people ask them if they were Middle Eastern. We would love to be all those things. That's not bad to be all those things, but we are Native. We are Ramapo. We are here. We are people just like everybody else. There's nothing special if I take my earrings off, if I, wear my hair out, put different clothes on, I'm still going to be the same person I am today. You can't change me. And I will still be here. And just a little tidbit, I thought, and this is at 60 years old, I learned something new about myself. My last name is Osterhoudt. I thought that my dad married into the Ramapo, well, not his family, from my great-grandfather. What I found out recently by the chief of the Turtle Clan, he says, Pat, your name's been around since 1609, the Osterhoudt name as part of the tribe. He showed it to me in a book, and it started with Katrina Osterhoudt. I never thought I could say that I am full Ramapo, but I am full Ramapo. That was a nice feeling to have. And so when we are able to identify who we are, if we are able to say the words that who we are and just be in a community and be part of it, that's all we want. That's all anybody wants. That's all the LGBTQ community wants. That's all the migrant community wants. That's all we want. We just want to be part and to be seen as a person and to be honored in that way. So thank you for all being here today. And thank you, Brian, for giving me the chance to speak.
Oh. Well, thank you all. It has been really wonderful to spend time with you all today. Gotten to meet some new people and hear some great insights and experiences that I'm gonna take with me. And I just have some scattered notes that have come to me during the day that I want to lift up. But the first thing I want to do actually before I forget is to share just a couple ways to invite folks to connect with the work that the Kairos Center is doing. And in particular, Reverend Liz Theo Harris and Noam Sandweiss Back, who also works at the Kairos Center, have a new book that is coming out on Tuesday called You Only Get What You're Organized to Take, Lessons from the Movement to End Poverty. I have started it. It's great, and I really recommend it. And it speaks to a lot of the issues that we've been talking about here. And there's a book tour starting that isn't really just a book tour. It's an organizing tour. And if you go to bit.ly/organized to take with the first letter of each of those words capitalized, bit.ly organized to take, that's where you can find different tour dates. But the first is actually a book launch event on Tuesday at Union Theological Seminary in New York City. So if folks are near the city, I encourage you to go check it out this coming Tuesday. And I think will be an opportunity for some inspiration and hope and connection in these times. And speaking of that, I don't know how many of you have been looking at news from these various hands-off actions today, but I've been getting text messages from folks around the state and around the country. I was just hearing from somebody, are you here, who's in St. Lawrence County, but apparently there were 500 people in Potsdam, 300 people in Messina. These are little towns up by the Canadian border. I know there was a big turnout in Stony Point. So there's some signs of hope and people coming out and organizing. And we have to do much more than mobilizing and just showing up for one-off things. The challenge is going to be, how are we connecting folks to each other for the long haul? And I know I threw a lot of quotes at you all today, and I have, I think, two more. One, Brian mentioned that this is also kind of a time of year significant in the life of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was arrested on April 4th, 1945. So that was 80 years ago, yesterday. When I was at Union Seminary, there were these Union sweatshirts And on the back of it, Dietrich Bonhoeffer spent like a few months at Union, which is something that Union celebrates as if he was there for years. But on the back of that sweatshirt was a Bonhoeffer quote: "Action springs not from thought, but from a readiness for responsibility." And when I got that sweatshirt, I was kind of like, I guess, like, why is this really like the best quote you could find from Dietrich Bonhoeffer? But over the years, it's taken on some new meaning and significance. And I think that it really is a question in these times. Are we going to take responsibility for the conditions that ourselves and our families and our neighbors live in, and for the world that we're leaving to our children and grandchildren, those who will follow us? A lot of people answer no to that question. A lot of people, for a lot of different reasons, leave these questions and these tasks to others because it's hard. And I think it is a time in our country's history for us to ask ourselves, are we ready and willing to take responsibility for what comes next? And I think from what I've heard from folks today, many of you are wanting to say yes. And that is really inspiring and hopeful. And it is a responsibility. And we have a responsibility to one another, I think, to hold each other as we take on that work. The other quote I wanted to lift up that kept coming to mind today is another one from Dr. King. It's from Where Do We Go From Here, his book that was published in 1967. And he says, when a people are mired in oppression, they realize deliverance when they have accumulated the power to enforce change. The call to prepare programs distracts us excessively from our basic and primary task. We are, in fact, being counseled to put the cart before the horse. Our nettlesome task is to discover how to organize our strength into compelling power so that government cannot elude our demands. And that's maybe a little bit complicated when you're just hearing it. But what he's trying to say is that the question of the moment the primary question isn't actually to figure out what's the answer, like what's the policy solution, what's the form of organization, what's the thing that's going to get us out of this moment. And a lot of times that's where people's brains go, right? Is what is the answer going to be? And what King says is that's putting the cart before the horse. What has to happen first is organization. What has to happen first is people being brought together around a common understanding of our solidarity and connection with one another, around a common sense of a vision for what is possible and needed and what we are called to build, and a way of taking action together when that is called for. And that's a big task. It's one that we're going to have to keep struggling with. But I think what I want to lift up is just the centrality of being connected. That is the thing that has to come first, that we are connecting people to each other, and then we're connecting those connections to other connections, to build this network that is able to respond together, because it's going to take not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but millions of people being able to take actions together to do what needs to be done. And that calls for what term we often use in the Kairos Center is permanently organized communities. And that can take a lot of different forms. A congregation is a form of a permanently organized community, right? We heard about the Brook Church being around for hundreds of years. A school is a way of having a permanently organized community. There's all kinds of forms that takes, but it's people who are sticking together, not because of, one election cycle or one issue campaign or, a transitory thing, but people who are sticking together for the long haul. And what we need these organized communities to develop, I think, is a set of values and a vision for the world, right? And I had a conversation with Brian and Christina a little bit earlier about one of the things that we need, I think, to be putting more of our energy and focus into is building this vision for what could and can our communities look like. What would our lives look like if we didn't have to worry about where we were going to get healthcare? What would our lives look like if we didn't have to worry about if we could find an affordable place to live? What would our lives look like if there was community places to get together and play music or see a play or play soccer? Like, what could our communities look like? But then the second part of that is actually believing that that is possible. And I know that it's really hard, especially in these times, to believe that that is possible. But there's no reason that it's not. We have the abundant resources of money, of people, of imagination in our communities to have things go a different way. And actually, it is not possible for us to continue the way we are going now. The status quo is going to fall. The question is, what is the next thing going to look like? And if we believe that all that is possible is some incremental changes or some tweaks around the edge of the system, then that is the most that we can hope to get. And I get it. I get why people look around and say, this is all that is possible. I get why it looks like that is true, but it's not true. And that's what we have to hold on to and really help each other to hold on to, because it's not easy to hold on to that knowledge and that vision. But this is not the best that things can get. There is a better world that is possible. And it's incumbent upon all of us to do what we can to bring it about. And at the core of that is staying connected and bringing more and more and more people into connection with each other. And that's what we have started to do here today. And I know it's going to continue to go forward, and really appreciate the chance to get to share in some of that with you all. So thank you very much.
All right, another big round of applause for West. Weren't they wonderful? Thank you. So much, oh my gosh, so much inspiration. And yes, we can. There's no reason that we can't. So that's a great way to great message to leave it on. Thank you. And what we have can't stand. So thank you for the reminder. All right, so before I go into some housekeeping things for those that are going to be staying, I'd just like to say thank you all for joining, both those of you who are online as well as those of you who are here. Thank you for spending a sunny day and a rainy day, both at the same time here. It was great to get to know you all. We hope that you learned something. We hope that you came away stronger, more empowered, and with a feeling that we're all in this crazy world together. And together we can make this world work for each other. It's going to take work, but together we can do that. So I just want to leave you probably where I started, and it's something that I always lean on, And that is, our goal is, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, I'm paraphrasing, to bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice. Let's all try to do that a little bit more quickly, okay? So that's what we're here for. So take care, and we'll see you back here real soon. Bye, Zoom.